What is up to all our sidekicks and henchmen out there in the Geek Nation? You're currently tuning into the CultPop Podcast live stream where we review the weekly comic books. We have some camaraderie. We have some coffee, smoothies, possibly some alcohol. I'm your host, Johnny Destructo, owner of Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex at 4327 Main Street in Manayunk, PA. With me this week is Len the Bat Tribble, who is a recent survivor of the film Superman Returns. Len, tell the people something.
Man, that is 2 hours and 34 minutes of your life that you want to cherish and never give away. Do not watch that film. Please, I beseech of you, don't.
To be fair, I think there's a good half hour of good movie in there. Also with me this week is Brian Lieb, who had a similar experience. Thoughts and prayers go out to Brian Lieb with 2001: A Space Odyssey this week. B, tell the people something.
Well, thank you, but it wasn't like that. Like I saw the movie when I was younger, and I was like, those ideas are really cool, and I like the book. And my girlfriend and I were, she had never saw it. We saw Clockwork Orange. I'm like, all right, let's check it out. And because she loved that one, which is a great movie. And we went out for like a long walk. We got some ice cream. We came back. We were tired already. We started this odyssey of a movie, and it's ponderous and slow and long. And there's some cool shit, but also I was falling asleep. Yeah,
there's large chunks of that movie that are like a tone poem that you just have to like turn off and hone into. Very weird movie.
So I wanted to give it another chance, and maybe I will still give it a third chance after this, but we'll see.
How long do you have to wait for your third chance?
Well, it's been like over 20 years since the first time, so
5.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
And last but not least, pleading the CultPop Crew is smoothie enthusiast Noel Bartocci. Noel, tell the people something.
Well, you see, in the mornings, especially when we record, this is an excuse for my breakfast, my smoothie. But I drink it too fast, so I also prepare coffee. So halfway through the stream, it'll be one or the other. Yeah.
My wife also made me a smoothie.
I go with the thermal mug because by the time I drink it, I want it to be at least warm. So anybody that wants to know that. Oh, well, I do like my smoothies like lukewarm.
Yeah, I like a tepid.
Like
smoothie.
soupy. Yeah, it's just like soupy. I don't want to feel the ice in my mouth ever.
All right, you guys. So a bit of news. This is fun. My workplace was exposed to COVID, so I've been quarantining. Let's see. We went and got tested on Wednesday night at 5:30 p.m., and then it takes 5 to 7 business days to get your results back. So we've been chilling. And by chilling, I mean reorganizing the entire house. and I set up this little YouTube background.
Looks cool. I was admiring your Spider-Man bust earlier.
Thank you. That's the Alex Ross Spider-Man bust. There's also a little Freddy versus Jason thing right there. And I took some cues from Noel and put up some omnibuses. And you can't see it, but there's a nice little. I commissioned an artwork of Freddy Krueger there, right next to
Spider-Man. Yeah, I see it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Anyway, we're here to talk about this week's comic books. I see there are some people in the comments section. Let's say hi to them real quick. Christopher Goodnight says, I lost my wallet with at least $200 in it at the theater when I saw Superman Returns. And I think we can all agree Superman did that on purpose.
Yeah, I think the movie took it.
Yeah.
I'd still be bitter as hell about that too. Like it wasn't even a good movie. There are things that I've lost in movie theaters that I cherished at the time, but you just forget about it if the movie was good. No,
Virginity.
I would still, your first handy, stuff like that. But and it was I think, yeah, and depending on the movie, you remember one or the other.
I remember really kind of enjoying Superman Returns for the most part.
Oh, I did too. I kept silent, but I did too.
Nah, y'all haven't seen it in a long time.
That's true.
Yeah,
Since it came out.
I was gonna say like
I remember being real weirded out by the end where he's like, yes, I have a son. Laters.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant when he flew into his son's room and just was there in the dark looking over him.
Oh no, I thought that was art. He was like,
Are you out of your
gazing
mind?
upon his son. I think
oh,
parents.
wait, no, he wasn't
parents
gazing
do that all the
upon his
time.
son. He was creeping on a family unit
Yes.
with X-ray vision from afar, and then
Was it from
just like
afar? I
smoothed
forgot
in.
about that part.
Yeah,
then
he was hovering over the house. It was so weird.
And it wasn't hovering over the house. He was in the room with his son.
Well,
He
that's
was
at the end.
yes,
But
at the
earlier in the
end.
film, he's like
Well-
stalking them. He's like using his heat vision and super hearing to stalk this family.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's his family too. It's not like these are pretty extenuating circumstances. He was out in space for 5 years and
Look,
didn't know
they
that
They
he
were
had a
not
kid.
his family too. It was his girlfriend, his former girlfriend, with her new live-in boyfriend.
No, his son
They're
is
not-
the family.
Yeah.
His
Brian.
son
Oh,
is
not
the
when
family.
Not when he's creeping on them.
Brian, if that excuse doesn't work in Lifetime movies, it doesn't work in DC Comics movies either.
Yeah,
I don't watch
take
a lot
the
of
cape
Lifetime
away.
movies.
Take the cape away. He's a villain. It's
No,
not
your
cool.
actions are. He was just. It wasn't like he was spying on their lives. He was just like looking at
Looking
his
at their
child.
house.
He explicitly was spying on their lives, listening to their conversation about
listening
him.
to their
I believe,
conversation?
right?
He was doing it the whole movie. He was doing it as Superman and as Clark Kent.
I was talking about when he is just looking upon his sleeping child. That is what I'm talking about.
Nope.
I don't remember him listening on the conversation. I mean, I haven't seen it
That-
since it was in the theaters.
The end of him looking upon his sleeping child is menacing because he spent the whole movie hovering over people and eavesdropping on them.
Superman.
It's content.
You know what I like about my new setup?
Yeah.
Is that when it's time for me to move you guys along in the show, I can just do a visual representation.
For those of you listening to the audio podcast, I'm not describing. I will not play into this. This is.
Randy Green says, "Ignore them, Brian. None of them like anything. Their souls are dead."
Look, I'm putting. Wait a minute. I know you want to get shit done, JD, but I was thinking about this as I was watching this 2 hours of Drek last night. I am putting up a challenge right there to that big lummox named Randy Green right now. Live on air or wherever you want to do it, dog. Me and you watch this movie and beat for beat, you defend what is happening in this movie. You defend your Clark Kent playing somebody who just stepped out of IDTV. They got specials. They got a whole series built around brothers like this, dog, that are like spying on their families. You defend this movie. You defend it. There is one good thing about this movie, and unfortunately, he's canceled now. That's Kevin Spacey. I defy you to defend this movie. This movie is long. It's boring. It's everybody in there is just sleepwalking except Kevin Spacey, who's having fun reenacting Gene Hackman. I defy you to defend this long piece of boring Drek, dog.
Now, wait.
Actually, I do remember him being like really hammy in a fun way.
Oh, I really
Like
liked
that-
him in this.
All those scenes of him on his yacht with like after he captures Lois Lane, like just how he chews the hell out of it. I do remember that being really fun.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's
can I
it.
strike a note of peace? Brandon Routh. Would we all now watch a Superman TV show starring Brandon Routh, especially
Yeah.
as the Kingdom Come from Crisis
Now?
on Earth? Yeah.
Sure.
I thought
Now,
he was
sure.
Christopher Reeve.
What's that?
For
I thought Brendan Routh did a good Christopher Reeve impression. He did have little S's on his boots. Though.
He did.
Yeah,
Not like Christopher Reeve at
everything
all.
is
We
a
get
lesson.
We get it, dude. You don't have to
But
have
they got the
S's
proper
everywhere.
boots, right? Like they had the
Branding's
little
important.
triangular sort of, like Superman's boot design, which movies don't really do. I remember at the time I was like, oh, cool. They're not laced up.
All right, let's talk about this week's comic books. It's time to get shit done. Oh, there we go. I'm back. Okay, woof. I disappeared for a second. All right, so first up, for anybody who doesn't know, there was a series called Black Hammer, and it was by Jeff Lemire, and it was a mini series, and I'd say it ran for maybe 3 volumes. And then after that, it's just a bunch of mini series that say from the pages of Black Hammer, maybe something like that. And if you don't know to look for it, you might not know that they even exist. So if you're a fan of Black Hammer, the series from Jeff Lemire, there is a myriad, a plethora, a murder of miniseries that you could be reading. And we're going to be talking about number 1 of the newest one called Barbalian Red Planet, number 1 of 5 from Dark Horse Comics, written by Tate Bromble with art by Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Diamond has this to say: groundbreaking new science fiction action series in the world of the Eisner Award-winning Black Hammer universe about prejudice, honor, and identity. Mark Marks has found his place on Earth as both a decorated police officer and as the beloved superhero Barbalian. But in the midst of the AIDS crisis, hatred from all sides makes balancing these identities seem impossible, especially when a Martian enemy from the past hunts him down to take him back, dead or alive. And I actually thought this was really, really good. I haven't tuned into the Black Hammer series since Volume 1, and I didn't know what to expect. I do find it a little daunting of a series to get into because of all of the mini-series that I can't tell when I'm supposed to read them. So I found that it's a lot like Hellboy. The presentation of Hellboy and BPRD I find hard to get into just because of the way they publish them. But this first issue I think was really solid. I think there was some time jump issues that I had trouble keeping track of. But other than that, I thought it dealt with some really interesting themes, and especially it's interesting to me because he's a shapeshifter. So the idea of like a society that is very rigid about their sexuality, about their gender and sexuality, is strange to me since they're a race of shapeshifters. You would think an alien society like that would be more open to changing things up, but I thought that was neat. What did you guys think of it, Brian?
Well, first of all, I agree. I remember, so we read the first volume for a book club a few months ago, and I enjoyed it. And I remember having the same thought that was continued here. That I'm like, these guys, these fools, why are they so concerned about this? And just as you were talking, I could see a societal dynamic emerge where maybe even the fact that they can shapeshift makes them more rigid about other things. It's certainly not what one would hope for. Yeah, it seems strange.
Oh,
But the content.
sorry.
I like this,
I
like
hit the wrong button.
stream, like jumping on somebody that's just like, oh, hi, hey, yeah.
The content of the book itself, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good story. The Martian Manhunter overtones are, obviously it's done on purpose. It sometimes is a little distracting. His decisions here are repugnant. He saves a guy and then shifts back into his police form and arrests him. These are in a protest for homosexual rights. But then obviously it looks like he's turning around. I found myself, I don't know what has come between what we read and this, but it seems like they are referencing the beginning of his story with that police officer. Yeah.
I can answer that question.
Yeah.
So, and also to JD's kind of confusion about how this series runs. I know that Len has read all of the main. So the main series is what we had started reading, which is just 24 issues, full story. That's that. these minis that keep happening either occur in between the two big volumes or after or before, but they don't explicitly affect the 24 issue arc. It just uses like side characters or characters reference and stuff. This is the first one that I've read that it feels like it's, so I haven't finished the main series. I've only gotten to like 12 or 13 issues, but it feels like this is the only one so far that's been kind of like a sequel. So it starts with him on Mars after the events of Black Hammer, and then shows you flashbacks to before the events of Black Hammer and how they will relate. So this is kind of like a sequel, but it also doesn't matter at all.
Well, his partner was like those scenes with his partner were in the first volume, right? Or,
They
or
were
very similar scenes.
Yeah, they were referenced in the first volume where he was dealing with his own sexuality, made a pass at his partner because he was just not used to kindness.
Right.
And this is kind of like this references it, yeah. But you don't have to read that to get the context here, or vice versa. And then on Mars, they essentially just kind of tell you like you disappeared, which obviously is what is Black Hammer. You disappeared, and however that transpired, I don't know yet. But now we find you, in bed with another male, not as your own skin or something like that. So it's just a lot of like others on like to other somebody on top of another other, to, no matter what your species is really. I mean, it's conflict. It works. It's weird, like upsetting weird, but.
Yeah, you would think they might not even have gender at a shape, if you're a shape-shifting society.
Yeah, But the scene that you were talking about of him, he saved the protester, and then slowly turned into a cop while the protester was talking to him, and then just cuffs him. That was really interesting to me. It wasn't. I wouldn't call it repugnant. It was more. It was super complicated in 4 panels, and it was really well done. So I didn't love this as much as it sounds like JD did. Like you really, really liked it. I thought it was fine, but there were a couple of really, really great scenes in it. Like overall, it felt like a sliver of a story, but a lot of like really good, almost like verite moments, like him and his partner in the car, how he responds to the protester. Those were really good, but as soon as they pulled out of that and showed like the larger plot of what's happening on Mars, I kind of shut down. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Noel's read on it. There were moments where you just wanted to stay there. Like I wanted to stay in the car with the 2 cops, right? I wanted to stay there. But okay, now we got to pull back to this. To the protest. I'm like, okay, I guess we gotta move forward. But it just felt like there's stuff there. I just didn't feel the connective tissue. It didn't fully connect. Now it's just the first episode. It's the first episode. Book, the first issue. So. Maybe everything will connect later on. The art was evocative enough that it got me in it. I like the storytelling. I think, to JD's point, the storytelling and the art could have done a better job of differentiating itself so that you knew that one part was happening, kind of present day and one was in the past. I don't think that it's readily apparent or as apparent as it could be. So that might give you, the reader, some pause and make you feel a little disjointed. And the second you can feel disjointed with a book like this, you might be more inclined to just put it down and just like, I'm just next to the next stuff that's more linear. But it's an interesting story. It's playing around with some interesting themes. I think sometimes they hit it a little bit too on the head. But sometimes you got to hit things on the head because that's just the way it is. So it got me. It was interesting. The the execution, I think, was flawed in some ways, but not enough that I would not recommend the comic book. I think it's and it's not a long read at all. It's considering the themes that it deals with. It's not wordy at all. You know,
it's almost kind of light.
Yeah.
Which I mean, if you think about it, that's not a dig at all. It's actually a compliment that these storytellers, the artists and the writers, because I think Lemire co-plotted it or something.
He wrote the story. It's his story. Then the
either way
wrote it.
Yeah, there's complexity, but the presentation is really simple, which is just it's incredibly impressive on its own. Which, I mean, Walt has done a lot of stuff like that too. Like if you've ever read Vision, he was the artist on that. There's so much stuff that's not in the text boxes that's like in that book that's great. I haven't finished Sentient, the TKO book that Walt and Lemire did, but his art style is very, I mean, his figures are cartoonish with air quotes, and there's kind of like a weird haze to everything, but his acting and the emotion and the blocking is just so awesome all the time. It's almost misleading.
I think his art style works very well for this like alien character. There's also a very like John Carter of Mars feel to the Martian environment, but it brings that sort of alienness to the whole book, like the way that it's drawn.
So I was about to say I'd like some clarification here. What do you guys think? Is this a book that people can pick up if they haven't read Volume 1 of Black Hammer?
Yeah,
I
think so.
I could just hand to somebody and be like, "Hey," especially I have a big contingent of queer comic book readers who like to read representative stories. Do you think number one?
I do.
I would say definitely, yeah. I think if anything, I found myself thinking like, wow, it's really covering some of the same ground as I've already read. How strange that this later miniseries would just happen to. I think it fully stands on its own, at least this issue.
Cool. That's what I thought. All right. I'm as someone who's only read the first volume of this and was only sort of moderately interested in it, I think I'm going to keep reading this particular series. I'm really enjoying it. It's only 5 issues, and I think I have more of an emotional attachment to this one than I did the series, focused on all of the different characters. I like that this is focusing on one of the characters, which gives me a little bit more room to, I think, connect. But that's just a personal thing.
I will tell you, though, JD, I think that don't even worry yourself about getting bogged down in the different miniseries. I think if you follow through Black Hammer, while there are a number of characters in there, I don't think it becomes too dense. I think they definitely take time to focus where they need to focus with each kind of like chapter of the story, if you want, guiding your eyes and your attention to where it needs to be, but without losing scope of what's happening in the world surrounding. And it's a book that actually, I think for the most part, it definitely stands alone. The story itself stands on its own, and it sticks to landing a lot more than a lot of other comics recently. It's a very, very good book.
I'm sorry, you're talking about what, the first 3 volumes of Black Hammer, or just
It's 4. It's 4 volumes. It's 4 volumes of
4.
Black Hammer, and that's the full story. That's the full story. I'm telling you, it's good. And I didn't buy any of the other stuff. You're not lost at all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go back and check it out at some point. All right, let's move on to Batman number 103, written by James Tynion IV. And art by Carlo Puculian, with inks by Danny Mickey. Very, a lot more nuanced ink work, I think, from Danny Mickey than I've seen from him in a long time. UCS has this to say about it. Batman and Ghostmaker go toe-to-toe to decide which of them will remain Gotham City's hero. That rhymes. The city is changing faster than ever in the aftermath of the Joker War. And with this change comes increasing dangers as Gotham citizens demand that Punchline be released from prison. Plus, Harley Quinn faces certain death at the hands of Clown Hunter. I feel like this is the wrong solicitation information for this issue. This isn't what happened in this issue at all. And I want to throw it over to Noel first because we had a previous conversation about James Tynion and how he's finally free with this series of, I think, editorial input, let's call it. And we'll see what he thinks of the series now that he's released those shackles. What do you think?
I mean, it's been 3 chapters out of like 25 since he's released the shackles. So as for feeling any different, it doesn't. I think this is boring. I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to continue past this arc. To be fair, of the solicit, the Clown Hunter stuff happened in this. He tried to kill Harley, but I had to flip through to remember this. This is a lot of retread. It's a lot of like spinning wheels, new characters with hammer pants. I don't care. Like after reading some really good Batman elsewhere, and I don't mean that he doesn't know the characters and handles them. It's just this story. I'm bored.
It's so boring. Oh my God, it's so boring. It is so much. We've been there, done that. It is such a. I mean, when you are reading a Batman comic and you don't perk up until you see a scene where Harley is talking to a tree. That is the best scene in the book. Oh my God, this is boring and stupid and oh God, and the art it's not bad drawing, but it's just I just don't care. I don't care. God.
So at the end of Joker War, they gave Batman a pretty decent, and I wouldn't say it's a new status quo, but it was at least a shift in status quo that we haven't had in a while. Whereas he's not supposed to have his all of his assets and all of like his deep pockets because he can't access money. He doesn't have the gadgets anymore. So I thought and hoped that they would spend maybe a couple issues just kind of really establishing that status quo and what it really means. No, we went straight into him still knowing everything, still having tons and tons of technology, and creating this new bad guy that, oh, you didn't know about it until now. However, he was part of the origin from back in the day and trained with him. It promised some like fun exploration that we haven't had for a couple decades and simply delivered the same shit we've been reading for the last 5 years.
Decades.
Oh wait, no, have they done?
I was just like, what?
Have they done Bruce Wayne doesn't have access to his money before?
Yeah, like in small arcs here and there, but also too just when he was starting. Like,
yeah, well, that's true.
We haven't, like in modern comics, or at least in the last like 20 or 30 years, we haven't had a Batman without Alfred, Batman without a tech solution or Deus Ex Machina for everything. Like this could have been something a little bit grittier and more fun. It's not.
Yeah,
also, speaking of the,
go ahead, Brian.
Speaking of the origin thing, I found myself thinking, there's that scene, he goes out the first time and, he just like gets beaten up real bad, before he's Batman. And then he comes back and he's sitting there and the bat flies in the window and he's like, through the window. And he's like, I will become the bat. Right. And that's his like big innovation. Like I'll dress as this character and be like more myth than man. And also, in this, it's like Ghost Hunter told him, hey, you should do something like that. Or I forget exactly the scene. Oh, right. He's like, you said you didn't need a mask or a pseudonym to fight crime in Gotham. Like this was a pre-existing debate that they had had. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, you know what? Maybe I could dress. Maybe I could be a bat. After all.
It's like
I wasn't convinced about having a costume and a mask, but then this bat crashed through my window.
Right.
Looks like I was wrong the whole time.
It sets up this so it's that makes it even more egregious to me though, because it sets up this whole thing about how this shady character from my past, from my training, has come back.
Mm-hmm.
That exchange indicates they've had many conversations since, or have had touch points since, and we just have never known about it. And it's like
they meet a lot actually over the course
a
of the
lot,
story too.
yeah.
Like, although they're meeting in the past, you had mentioned the inking earlier, JD, and it looks really good in these desert scenes. Like all this shadow and like black streaks in the sky and everything are very cool. And Ghost Hunter's costume looks way better in the past as well.
Yeah, I like that original mask, and now he's got MC Hammer pants and like Titan capes.
Yeah,
I still kind of dig, and as I look back on all of Tinian's run thus far, the two things that I shouldn't like but I still kind of do are Punchline and Clown Hunter.
Yeah,
but every time, like, because they're relatively new, or they're relatively new feeling, right? Yeah. Like what he's doing with Punchline in that one shot, even though it wasn't like the best issue, but the idea of a public figure radicalizing or muddying the waters of truth, kind of cool. And then with Clown Hunter, he's just like, I'm just a murderous vigilante. You're all idiots. Like, yeah, I kind of dig those two characters are really cool, but they're surrounded by a story that I could give two craps about.
Why doesn't Ghost? What is it? Ghost Hunter?
Maker. Ghost Maker.
Ghost Maker. Right.
Murderer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought he made him in his ghost workshop, like when he wasn't fighting crap.
He makes them ghosts.
Yeah. What? So why is he not like in favor of Clown Hunter? Right? Are they not essentially doing the same thing? I was
just thinking the same thing.
Right.
Ego.
I guess, but he's kind of. It's not even like I'm the only one that can do this. He's kind of espousing this philosophy and then saying, but this guy's a murderer. I mean, not that he needs to be the most rational person, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that was actually a decent scene. I think is this what you have on the screen now? The idea of like earlier in the book, Ghostmaker was just like, I did this and this and this in one afternoon, you dummy. And later on, with a sword in his back, Batman kind of explains like, I didn't do that because of this. I didn't do that because of this, and I can't do this because of that, and you've made it all worse.
Okay, but
I thought that was pretty cool.
But what I don't like about this is that they've set it up that this guy is coming from the past. They've set it up that this guy is pretty evenly matched with Batman, right? Mm-hmm. And for the most part, they've been going, when you see them fighting, they go tit for tat. But then, off screen, he obviously beats the bejesus out of Batman, because now Batman comes in with swords sticking out of his back, blood dripping through his freaking costume. I mean, it already stretches the mind that the Joker can do this to him. But now this dude who's evenly matched, Batman, if anything, dude should be at least just as effed up as Batman, right? But no, Batman is like, he looks like he's got COVID. He's like done over here. And all of a sudden, and now, after he's beat his ass, now Batman wants to explain, well, all that stuff you said in the beginning, actually, I was already on top of it. Why didn't you just say it then? No, it makes no sense for you to say it now. It absolutely makes no effing sense. This book is... y'all are jumping through hoops to make this stuff make sense. This stuff is bad. It's bad. And I'll tell you why it's badly written. You're talking about how James Tynion has a good sense of Batman. And maybe he does have a good sense of Batman. But even James Tynion's Batman, and certainly no Batman I know from before, would ever use the words, I have someone in my family already checking it out. He would not say family. He would not say that in that instance. And that is exactly what he says there. He says, I have someone in my family already looking at. That does not sound like Batman at all. No. This is it's just does not ring true for me. This is I'm not buying it. No, I'm sorry.
He does also then say that, like, explicitly states that every time they've met, he's won. And yet, like, to further your point, like, Ghostmaker should be more beat up than this.
Yeah, and that was actually a weird sticking point to me too. Like, I know that these fictional characters that are super heroic get beat up a lot, but
Right.
it was such a like 180 that the next panel he's literally got a full katana sticking out of his side, and he's coughing up blood. I'm like, I hope they deal with like the triage ER next issue, because he's gonna die. It's not just like I got shot and it hurts.
And
like,
he's got two katanas. It's
Yeah.
two in his back.
Yeah.
Both of them.
It's a little aggressive, and kind of like it's not so much. It's there's we just like start to accept certain levels of damage of characters to like pass by later. But then there's some levels where it's just like, oh no, you can't just like write that off with a good night's sleep for the next issue. He's gonna have to deal with something, and I'm worrying about that now when I really should just be worrying about the plot. Like, it's like the artist just went a little too far, just a little too far.
He doesn't have Alfred there to give him some baby Tylenol.
No, well,
Which is still in the mansion. He just doesn't know where it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's the changeover from artists, because that's Gillian March there at the end of the book. Which,
did it switch?
yeah, he draws the rest of the book.
Yeah.
Where does it
Charlie
switch?
Shows up talking to the plan. That's Gillen March.
Oh, because I was just going to say, I was going to differ from you, Len, and say, like, oh, I actually really like the art. The costume of Ghostmaker is not great, but, like, Batman is good. And then I was looking at Harley Quinn, and, you know, she's drawn really well this time.
Great.
Oh, okay. All right. I
March-
didn't realize.
March draws Harlequin's scene. So when everything moves into Harlequin's room,
Okay.
her world, then he took over the art.
I like what's down here. The page I have up, and the panel layout is the Clown Hunter's bat with Batarang in the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool.
His bat is pretty funny.
I like that he calls it bat. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I actually haven't enjoyed Gillen March on this book. The last like two
Me
issues
neither.
that he did, like he draws Batman with, I mean, he didn't do it here, but with the weird spike shoulder cape. He also looks like a 85-year-old Clint Eastwood knockoff when they do close-ups. Like, I just haven't enjoyed his art on this book.
His Harley's great.
Yeah, sure.
He is great.
I mean, didn't he make his bones or his bona fides doing Catwoman with Judd Winnick?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, so he's got that covered. But for some reason, when he draws Batman, he looks like he was actually born in the 60s and is now like Clint Eastwood age.
Before we move on, I just want to say that I said something in regards to Batman's look, and I like described that it looks like he had like, I made a bad joke. I made a bad joke, and I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't belittle what's going on in the world, and I'm sensitive to that, and I recognize that, so I apologize.
Fair enough.
Dark Knight's Death Metal number 5 of 7, written by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo and Jonathan Glapion. The Darkest Night has won. With absolute power at the villain's fingertips, Wonder Woman and the rest of the DC heroes are nothing to him. Nothing! As the Darkest Knight turns his sights to his true goal, remaking the multiverse in his image, can Earth's heroes rally together to make a last stand? Brian, do you think they can?
I think they
rally
can.
together to make...
I mean, they can. But will they? I don't
know. Who's to say?
Scott Snyder, I guess, and DC editorial.
So here's my thing about this issue. I read number 4, and this is now number 5. And at the end of number 4, all the heroes are there, and then I guess the Robin King shows up. And then in the beginning of this issue, they're all defeated. What happened?
Wait, what?
What happened in issues 4 and 5?
It happened during the Robin one shot that we all read.
I I didn't even know I was going to say.
We read it and we reviewed it. It's
You
where it
didn't-
happened.
Yeah.
You didn't read Robin King #1?
I did read that, and I've forgotten all of that.
But to be fair, though, didn't matter. Like, it ends with him staring at them, ready to fight, and then it cuts back in here now with them demolished. I mean,
They've done a
That's
bunch
comics.
of that in
Yeah.
this series. Like you remember in issue 4, there was like Superboy Prime has a change of heart, and they go to crush that tower, and then boom, it's
that was a character. So if you want to cut away from a fight, I get it. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's page economy. When you change character motivations off panel, then it's like, all right, stop it.
well,
Like,
also
don't
just
get
the
that
big
conversation.
destruction of I think in both senses, like there's just been a lot of like cuts in death metal, you know, where he goes from one thing to another.
I think if I remember correctly, the Superboy Prime's change of motivation, which actually revealed, not off panel, but it was in a limited edition comic strip that ran in USA Today.
Yeah. The story of this book is happening everywhere but is what they're trying to say.
Yeah. There was a beat poem constructed, only available one night.
Guys, I actually liked this issue.
Tell us about it.
I didn't like issue 4 because it was just, literally nothing happened, and all of the one shots were where the story was happening. This feels like it's pulling some of that together to actually propel the one specific plot in this book. I like a couple of the reveals. So this is issue 5 of 7. This is just like narratively the come together for the final push, which usually always is kind of a fun issue. It's just the hype issue. It's like all like the whole first 4 issues of this was the whole first 17 issues of this, because there's been so much, was putting teams together and kind of like plot mechanics. This should be like, now that we set all those dominoes up, we can actually start like knocking them down. And that's what the beginning of this was. It was pretty hype. I actually really liked it. I like some of the character reveals, like Batman's dead. He's been dead. I think that's really cool. Like, he didn't just learn to master the Black Lantern ring. He died at the end of Scott Snyder's run of Justice League. He's been dead this whole time, which is rad. There's a couple of other things. I like the idea of they thought that their battle was going to be against these two gods, when really all of the dark multiverses are coming at them. So it's going to be this big melee against your dark versions, which I think is kind of fun. Yeah, this was just big dumb comics. I wish that the schedule of this wasn't like it is. Like, not that it's coming out infrequently, because there's a new death metal something every single freaking week. Just that it's so many different minis and one shots, and the story is scattershot across all of them. There's no real clear. This was a problem with the other one too. There's no real clear thread line, because it's happening on so many different planes across different books. I wish there was a more cohesive way to just enjoy this story, as opposed to, I have to remember to pick up that one random one shot to do this, to do that, to understand the motivation of this that happens off panel over here. Like, it's just, it's scattered, and I don't like that.
Let me ask you this. Would you prefer it be like 10 of Swords, where it's part 4 of 22, where like each number is like, each issue is numbered in sequential order of like, as opposed to the one shots where every issue is a number 1 and you don't know which one to read when, of like on the cover of like, oh, this is Death Metal part 3 of 22.
No, I wouldn't prefer that. I wouldn't prefer it being stretched across like 7 other different series. I like, I don't know, if I had my druthers, first of all, a good chunk of it has been useless. It's been background. It's been like reading the appendices of a story, a lot of the one shots. But then also, I mean, you've got maxi series, and you've got like 6-month events. Just do it that way. So like, maybe Death Metal isn't 7 issues with 17 side issues and miniseries. Maybe it's just 22 issues over the course of, half a year, as opposed to like this.
What I was trying to say, and I don't think.
No, but it's one series. It's one series,
That's,
one go. Not
Yeah.
no. You suggested Ten of Swords, which is 7 different like ongoings, all having their own issues across all. So if you only collect one,
no, I didn't mean a 1-for-1 for Ten of Swords. I meant if it had the numbering like Ten of Swords on the cover.
oh, I mean numbering.
Like, this is a 22 issue part. This is a 22 issue series, and this is the order you read them in.
I mean, if there was something that told me the order, sure, but that doesn't solve the problem of it's happening all over the place.
True.
I would just go with consistency and like clear linear, as opposed to it's happening all over the place.
Storytelling versus presentation, right? You're talking about storytelling, and I'm talking about presentation, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, is this something that, like, if this was in a trade and it was all in order, would that issue go away?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
It would absolutely go away.
Yeah, I could see that. There is a lot of, and also the tie-ins have varying levels of impact. Like, one of them, I think we all agreed, should have just seemed like issue whatever of the main series, and then other ones are not really related, or they're related but they're much more background and skippable. Speaking of how people write Batman, I just happened to see, I like this line where he says, where Luthor shows up and he says Doom, and he's like, where you meet your end is more Batman. I like Batman commenting on his Batmanness.
Yeah, I think there's some cute things strewn throughout this. But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. No, sorry. That was a complete left turn from the. I just happened to see that page from what we're talking about the series. I think I felt sort of a little bit in contrast to you, Noel, where I did like this issue a lot. I felt a little more about this issue, like I think most of you guys did about last issue, where I know a lot happened. It just, for whatever reason, didn't feel like it was moving as fast-paced as the first, 3, I guess. Also, why is the Spectre on the variant cover? That is the Spectre.
That's not the Spectre. No, that's Lex Luthor.
Oh, that's Luthor? Uh-huh. Because he's got like a green... Yeah, he's like white with a green...
No,
cloak.
It's Apex Predator Lex Luthor.
I gotcha. Who he no longer is in the context of this story. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Batman reveal was cool. I like the idea that Superman has assembled a team to destroy the Earth because it is the basis of all these other realities. And once you destroy that, I guess they'll be able to start from wherever, square one, what have you.
There is I think Christopher St. Saucy mentioned the the story is all over the place. The comment, and there was Justice League Doom is crossing over that wrapped up this week also, and the whole series was just getting to the point of the end of this book where the Doom ship shoots the Omega Knight. What is that?
Who's the Omega Knight?
That big, the city that transforms into a giant bat.
What I like about
the
that
Doom
scene,
ship shoots
is the way they do it. What the process was to use Brainiac technology to, I guess, transfer the soul of Batman from the city into a snow globe city.
That was
where
cool.
He will live for centuries, but then Harley Quinn just drops it and shatters it with her foot, and he's like, "Oh, or you could break it, I guess."
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff in here.
Yeah. My one sticking point is their goal, not their goal, but the thing that they're going to do at the end is destroy Earth. And Superman seems okay with that. And Superman has always struck me as a character who's like, no, we're not going to sacrifice millions. We're definitely going to do everything we can without sacrificing any human lives. And in this one, he's like, destroy the Earth, and that's how we'll win. See,
I'm not sure how many lives are left on Earth
there's
at this
one
point.
life on Earth. Superman's not going to destroy Earth.
I hear you. I'm not even sure if there is that. And also, I think this is like we're going to do this in furtherance of our, like, this is the only way to collapse this multiverse and restart everything, and then people will be back kind of deal.
That's a lot of fingers crossed, right?
Yeah,
Superman.
It's that thing, too, where he's like, what are you waiting for? Let's start. He's like, I'm just taking one last look in case we were wrong.
Yeah. In case our fingers crossed don't work.
But also,
let's destroy the planet.
Something that's happening in, like, I don't know, one of the other 30 books about this that I've read is it's not really it's Superman, but it's not completely our Superman. He's constantly just like with Cable. He's constantly fighting off the anti-life equation that's with this like uncurable. So he's a little, I guess he's supposed to be a little bit more edgy.
Okay. Is that what happened to his arm? That's the anti-life equation that's turning him into a thing?
It's like turning him into Darkseid. I think that's why he's got the sort of Omega Beam eye power thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. He's like they were grafting like Apocalyptic DNA onto him and infusing him with the anti-life equation, and they got him out in time.
Gotcha. Hey, Len, how much did you hate this issue?
Are we ready for the next book?
Okay. Let's move on to Rorschach number 2 of 12, written by Tom King with art by Jorge Fornes. What's the connection between an aging comic book artist and Rorschach? That's the question the detective investigating the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate must answer. Will Myerson, a reclusive artist known for his pirate comics, went from drawing the adventures of Pontius Pirate and the Citizen to working with a mysterious young woman hell-bent on making sense of a post-Watchmen world. Somewhere in the life of Will Myerson lies the key to learning more about Rorschach. Eisner Award-winning writer Tom King teams with rising star artist Jorge Fornes to delve into backroom maneuvering and political corruption in a story that asks how far a man with ideals will go to make them a reality. Now, Noel and I teamed up earlier in the week, and we put on the YouTube channel a thunder round, a duo thunder round, where we each reviewed the book for 60 seconds, unbeknownst to what the other one was saying, and using the movie magic of editing, I pieced it together. So you can find out what we thought there. Brian, what did you think?
It was good. It was well done. It was an adeptly told story. I wasn't like that into it. I would probably read the next issue. The first issue was more interesting. This was a very different kind of story, but also well told. You mentioned he draws the Citizen, this character in here, and we see a couple of pages of the Citizen, which admittedly I skimmed, which I like never do while I'm reading something, but I was like, I don't feel like reading this, which I also do with Tales from the Black Pearl if I ever reread Watchmen, you know? Yeah. But herein we have the continuance of the eternal reflection of the Question and Rorschach, who are, you know, for people who don't know, the Question was a Charlton Comics character that Alan Moore wanted to use and then couldn't, so they created Rorschach. And they are continually popping up in reference or some other form in each other's comics. You know, like the Question will see a copy of Watchmen and be like, huh, you know, that kind of thing. And the Citizen is basically the Question, who I think is also Mr. A. There's this character really, I think the Question was created because they were like, hey, why don't you do this Mr. A comic for a Comics Code approved book? And, you know, as he changed it a little, it's a Question. So this character certainly sticks with people. Something about this, you know, the trench coat and hat and blank face or something like that. It's an intriguing bit of comicsdom.
Now, Mr. A, was that the Ditko creation?
Yes.
Mm.
What was his? Did he have a mask?
I think he might have had.
He might have had a blank face
mask,
too.
Actually, yeah. Come to think of it. I think they were like almost exactly the same, just toned down to fit a Comics Code book, and so he gave it a different name. Yeah.
Go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
That was about it. Just like, you know, the way that they unraveled the mystery of this issue, I thought was pretty well done. And the story unfolded in an interesting pace and style. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it.
Nice. Len, what did you think?
I loved it. I loved it.
Tell us.
I love a good detective story that is well thought out, and it's like the breadcrumbs you're following along to see how things kind of just like start like piecing together. How something happens on page 4, and then it's echoed on page 15, and you're like, oh, I see how this is all connected. Like, I dug the storytelling of it. The artwork was just like so spot on. And I'm hit or miss with Tom King, and it's usually a miss, after a bit. But in short chunks, he seems to work. Because I like Mr. Miracle, and this I'm really, really digging. I am just loving this. Like, this is like some juiciness, man. This is like some good crime comics, man. Like in the best. It is. There's nothing about even when that part where I kind of like skimmed too, where it shows like the Citizen, comic strips, and you read it a little bit. It definitely brings you in the mind of Ditko, because it's these two protagonists, like just espousing, philosophies at each other as they are punching one another. But and I guess if you read it, maybe it gives you a little bit more into what the Rorschach was about and all that type of stuff. But you really don't need to read it, just like the Black Pearl stuff. I've never read. But I did look at it a little bit, and I did peek like the whole 14B. That's a clues of where he needs to go. So I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're going there. I guess I should have read it. So I read a little bit more, and I dug it. But this is just juicy stuff, man. And because of the way he introduces these characters, you wonder, are these very seemingly just witnesses the things that happen? Are they actually going to be something more important in the story further along in the third issue or something like that? So you pay attention to how well thought out all of these seemingly incidental characters are, man. It's like I just, man, there was nothing about this. And then I love the end. It's like he's going into the apartment building, and then he's coming out of the apartment building. It's just,
that was cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's just cool. It's just cool, man. Oh, this is good. It's like the best episode of a 70s crime TV series. I loved it. I loved everything about this book.
Man, I think I like it more now. Yeah.
I'm having like cold sweats because I'm so excited by your response. It's literally everything that I thought and felt. Like, it's a closed door mystery, right? Or a closed room mystery. The entire issue takes place in this one apartment building, and he is like methodically from one room to the next, or one like clue to the next, and it's just so amazingly well paced. And the art, how it changes to show you the time period of just, it's just so great. And then the comic in the comic, I read it and I loved it, because it's so incredibly overwritten in the kind of way that a frustrated kind of incel manifesto would be. Because he just got finished with being violently bullied, and the man for the last like 40 years or whatever has been like impotent with anything and everything. Like, so this is the kind of like weird manifesto type shit that comes out of him. And I was just like, wow. Yeah. I loved every piece of this book. I loved it.
And if you ever read Mr. A, which I've read like not a lot, but a little bit of, it reads like Mr. A, because Mr. A was Steve Ditko. Finally, he doesn't have Stanley on his neck. He doesn't have anybody on his neck, and he's just like, all right, just Steve, just go, just do whatever you want, and then just Steve Ditko just lets loose. You know what I mean? And it's overwritten as hell. It's more overwritten than this. But it's exactly that same thing. Just unleashing everything that is in his mind onto the drawing page. So it does read a lot like that, which is part of why I was like, okay, I've been here. But but it's good stuff.
One of my favorite elements of this book or this issue is these comic book pages, and how, just from a design element, I think the fact that you can see the texture of the paper, you can see the pencil marks, and the best part is you can see the whiteout on top of the page, which is just a level of realism that you don't usually get with this sort of like faux comic in a comic thing. Usually they just stick with like, oh, we're going to make it zip-a-tone color, like they did in Crossover, Donny Cates' book. But this one is a whole nother realism to how the comic book page is actually created, and how you can even see it right here. You can see that it's a piece of paper that has been glued down on top of.
Yep. I was gonna say the text boxes are different pieces of paper.
Yeah.
That are laid over the drawings. This is, the more and more I think about this issue, just this issue, the more and more I love it, and the more excited I am for the rest of the series. Because if we're comparing this to his other 12-issue maxi series, and not the long runs of things that usually meander, I'm so excited of where this could go, because almost all of those start in one place, shift into another place, escalate, and then wrap up. And it's just like, I mean, this is only 2 issues in. What the hell is going on? Because the end of the last issue, you're just like, oh, so that was an 80-something-year-old Rorschach? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I was thrown a little bit by, I mean, it's a very valid storytelling technique, but by them not seeming to move as forward with that mystery, that storyline, as they might have. Of course they are, because this is this is the guy that was in that suit, and they're figuring out who he is. But it becomes a much smaller story about this guy's life, and not how it plays into the Rorschach stuff or anything like that. Also, I wanted to mention for people who don't know, the thing that we are looking at, the 2 comics pages, one of the elements of realism that they were talking about is this is not a published comics page. This is the artist's comics page. Like you see up at the top, they've got like project title / issue is written. And that's why, like they were saying, that the text boxes are pasted on top of the art. And then like, this is what would be sent to whoever the next step, the colorist, I guess.
This is the original art.
Yeah. Which is an interesting take. I don't think I've ever seen original art presented. Sometimes they present comics in comics, but I don't think I've ever seen them present the original art of comics in a comic.
Oh, well,
like this.
Let me tell you. There are things called Artist Edition, which I think, is it IDW? There's a publisher that puts out these, they're called Artist Editions, and they are 11 by 17, thick as hell, hardcover absolutes, I guess. And you are looking at the pages at the size that they are drawn, and they are presented exactly like this, where you can see the different paper which is cut and put in. Like, even sometimes they'll do that within the image itself, not just where they put the word bubbles. But if the artist or the inker mess up in the middle of a panel, they will cut out another piece of paper, glue it on top, and then redraw. And that's all, eliminated in post-production. So you can actually buy hardcovers like this. They just recently did one for the Micronauts. They have a version of Dark Knight Returns. They've got Daredevil by Chris Samnee. They're big and they're beautiful, and I love them specifically because of this. It's the pages scanned in at full color.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, very cool. And the other thing I liked about this issue is the story of this cartoonist and the bullying. This sort of like, it's almost passive aggressive what this neighbor keeps doing to him. Kind of, I don't know, is it called negging, or I'm not sure, but like the fact that this guy has been dealing with this neighbor for what, 20 or
longer,
30 years, I think they say. Yeah,
30 years.
Yeah.
You sort of feel for the guy. It's kind of a bummer.
The slow turn of that reveal was pretty good too. I mean, from the very instant that his widow says like, oh, he teased him, but it was in his own way, that this guy is not really being that nice. But the like over the course of the story, it's interesting how they do that reveal where like, oh, it was actually repeated, continual, kind of almost psychological abuse that this guy was going through. And I thought that reveal was done very well.
Oh, and also what that reveal also shows you is how complicit she was in that bullying in a sense, you know what I mean? Because, as she puts it, Carl was just being Carl because Carl was her husband, know, but Carl was the person that she chose over him, and the person that she chose to throw in his face all the time. And as her words would say one thing, the images would show that she was taking glee at the way that Meyerson was being picked on, So she was complicit in that, and you learn that over the course of time so beautifully. God, I love this book.
Can someone explain this line to me? So basically, the bully has been knocked down, and the Rorschach character, quote unquote, is towering above him. And the guy says, "Please, I don't have any money." And Rorschach says, "Can't hear what you can't know."
I don't think there's an explanation yet.
Thank you. Okay, I was like, "What am I missing?" I don't get that line at all.
No, I think it's that's one of the to me it read like one of those things that's gonna come later, or it's just enough of a eccentric or weird thing that will kind of like get repeated later on.
You know what it is? It's you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I mean,
I just like the sound of
like,
it.
I mean, I feel like that's gonna have more. Like, it's probably gonna have more of a plot point than that.
I mean,
but
maybe.
Yeah.
But so I maintain that while it seems expertly crafted, I will enjoy this as a trade paperback much better than enjoying it in single issues.
Definitely. And I will make my announcement now that I will not be reviewing any more issues of this book because I want to have the trade. So please review it. Please, I'll sit here and listen to the review, but I'm not going to read the book. I am not going to read it. I'm telling you right now, JD, be mad at me all you want. I am not going to read the book.
Wait, there was another one. Was it last week or the week before where you said that too? Like, I'm enjoying the shit out of this. I want to read it in trade.
He did. What was that?
We should have a list of these things going. So Rorschach.
I think it actually is the one that I read issue 2 of, which I am not going to read any more of, which we'll be reviewing later.
Oh, right.
Oh, We Live. That's right.
You're on a comic book review show.
No, but it's all the ones that are great so far.
He only wants to disparage ones that are so or worse.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
No, of course not.
All right, let's move on to Sea of Sorrows, where we will find out if Len is going to keep reviewing it or not.
I cannot, in good conscience, move on to Sea of Sorrows without getting some information about Patreon.com. I need it.
I'll tell you.
Tell me.
If only Brian wants to help out the show with some money, you Brian can go to www.patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo and help out the show that way.
Thank you.
We will be starting a new, better Patreon under CultPop Go, where we will actually provide you a new show, hopefully. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, as of right now, if you want to help out the show, Patreon.com/JohnnyDestructo would help us out. And if you don't have any money, that's fine. Not many of us do. You can share the show with your friends. You can post about it. You can tweet about it. You can share it on your social mediums. And comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. That would help us out. And also, if you like the show, if you found us on YouTube or Twitch or anywhere else that we're live streaming, and you decided that you don't have time to sit here and watch our beautiful mugs, you can also listen to the show on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you find podcasts. They come a little bit later because that means I have to sit and edit all of them. But or Len helps out too. Thank you, Len. As a longtime watcher, Max says, "I love supporting the show through Patreon." Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max. Yeah, thank
Man,
you.
that's the best. Thank you so much. All right, Brian,
Yeah.
is it okay? Do you know enough now about Patreon.com for me to continue the show?
I'll get back to you next week.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
We're gonna move on to Sea of Sorrows, number 1 of 5 from IDW, written by Rich Duick, with art and cover by Alex Cormack. Deep sea adventure with a horrific twist from the creative team behind last year's hit horror series Road of Bones comes an all-new tale of bone-chilling terror. So many bone-specific horror phrases. In the aftermath of the Great War, the North Atlantic is ripe for plunder by independent salvage crews. When a former naval officer hires the SS Vagabond, he leads the ship to a sunken U-boat and a fortune in gold. Tensions mount as the crew prepares to double-cross each other, but the darkness of the ocean floor holds deeper terrors than any of them have bargained for. This was fine. I thought it's a fine beginning to a horror series. I don't think it grabbed me in any particular way. I think it's kind of neat that it's dealing with sirens, which is something that we don't usually see in horror comic books or horror stories in general. Really, they're an underserved horror populace. So I think that's kind of a neat idea. I think the artwork, while has it really interesting technique, I think that the structure of the faces is a little cartoony, and it strikes this weird dichotomy between the style and the sort of like, gosh, the presentation of the book is a little strange to me. But I think it's off to an interesting start. I don't know if I care enough to keep reading it. I probably won't. But I'm curious what Noel has to say. Noel, what'd you think of it?
A lot of the same. It was a little boring. But I do agree with the art. I want to throw kudos too at the lack of art, which was great. So like this first page too, like the use of negative space and shadowing, even though sometimes the faces were a little disjointed with the actual like forms. This like panels like sequences like this where he's underwater.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. That's incredibly well done, and it's really, really eerie. Other than that, I was just crazy bored.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there are segments here like what we're looking at here with the underwater stuff, and even the very first page, I went, "Oh, look at this! Look at this! This is like it's a lot like Philadelphia by Sean Alexander or something like that." But then you get to the forms of the faces, and you've got a very strange thing happening here. I'm sorry, Len. I didn't mean to.
There are times where the faces look like they've been smacked with Joker venom. I didn't know what was happening with them. They had like these weird, grotesque smiles on them. I felt the same way as y'all did with the art. It pulls you out of the scene because you're like, is this? You know it's supposed to be horrific, and they're kind of supposed to look realistic. At least you think so, because the undersea scenes are so well done, so well formed, so heavy in mood and suspense that when you go up into the sun, it's just like, what the hell? Like, yo, y'all need to be under the water because y'all look fucked up. It just took me out of it. And like, look at those teeth, Lord. I mean, I wanted to, like, when I opened the book, just like you, JD, you open up to that beautiful layout on that first page, and you're like, okay, I think I might be in for something here. And then it's just so hit or miss. It depends on which page you're on, that I was just taken out of it. I really, really wanted to like it, because I like the kind of like Jaws feeling that they were going for with the suspense in the story of these people that you're not supposed to like. And I guess in that way they did well, because I didn't like them. I didn't like the way they look, and I didn't like the way they read. So I guess maybe they did well. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it was just a miss for me. But and it's a shame, because I really wanted to enjoy it.
Brian.
I see what you guys are saying about the faces. The art, I think it has this like dark, moody quality to it that really suggests a cold seaside town. Like when we're looking at the scene in the bar that they're in or whatever, it seems like the appropriate shadow for that meeting. And then even when they're out on the sea, and of course under the ocean is where it's very dark, and that's where a lot of this really moody stuff is coming out. But even above the ocean, I think if this was the beginning of a movie, I would continue this movie. I've started the movie and I will watch it. But you don't see the sirens enough. You see them like 2 times. There's a lot set up on like some character setup, and he's got some issues from some like PTSD or whatever his issues are from the war. But you've also got this search for gold. None of this stuff is unnecessary, or maybe even stuff that you could do without. But I didn't think that there was enough of like what this book is to really hook me, to get to the sirens and mermaids.
Oh, see, I think that's the stuff that does work, is the fact that we only see the sirens twice. You see them, down, the one character sees it and decides, I'm not getting enough oxygen down here, I'm clearly hallucinating. And then it isn't until the very end where we see the siren in her full form and everything. And I think that, as far as a horror comic is concerned, that's paced well. I think it's interestingly spread out. You had mentioned Jaws earlier, and one of the really influential and important parts of that film is the fact that they had the shark sucked, the fake shark that was just the worst. And so they had to edit around and shoot around this shitty ass shark because it looked stupid. So it's sort of a happy accident. It's a Bob Ross thing where, well, we're not going to show the shark as much as we may have wanted to, and that creates the suspense that is so heavy and thick in that film, and that's what makes it a success. So I think that element here works. I'm sorry, no.
Yeah. I was going to say to Brian's comment, though, I don't necessarily. So you kind of attributed the problem being not enough monster, and I don't agree with you. But I do agree with the sentiment, because it's not that there's not enough monster. It's that there's five conflicts that are introduced very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's really just the fact that there's too much, not enough of one thing. Like I don't even remember most of these characters' names, let alone what their motivations are and who they're double crossing. Like immediately we get into a conversation about how Nick couldn't be trusted, but then let me know because we need someone to do the ship. And then Mike is the one that's underwater or some bullshit. I didn't know who they were talking about because it was like right after the scene. So it's really not that there's not enough of the monster. It's just that there's too much of a lot. Yeah. And what am I holding on to for the next issue to make me excited?
Yeah. We're at this scene here where she's having a cigarette up top with somebody. And she says, listen, I know you don't like Deke. To be honest, nobody does. And so I stopped reading and I went, who was Deke? And I went back and I did a cursory glance trying to find Deke. Couldn't find Deke. Still don't know who he is. And I don't care enough. And I went back to reading the book.
He's the guy that nobody likes.
Out eventually.
It was right after the scene of him underwater. So I just presumed it was the guy that's there is underwater, but it's not.
No, that's Mike.
It's different. Yeah, exactly. Well, like there's just there's so much plot so far and very little focus.
Yeah, and just to continue the comparison with Jaws is, like JD said, right, the pacing out of the siren is smart, and it plays the way that Jaws did. But what also made Jaws work is that all these different characters, they were all focused on the shark. They just had their own perspective on how they were focusing on it. Like the mayor, didn't want that to get in the way of, the vacation because the money that the city was going to make, So because of that, you understood everybody's motivation. Here, you don't know what the fuck is going on because everybody is is referenced in an aside and by their nicknames and these tight close-ups, and everybody's got like British teeth, and you don't know what the hell is going on, man. So you can't tell one from the other. Except for that one page, I think, that obviously is lit by the cigarette light. Every place else is like dark and moody, and looks like it's like etched in the paper as opposed to drawn on top of the paper.
That is cool. That's a cool, like, the color lines thing. Yeah.
And that's cool. But if it works, if you don't know what's going on story-wise, then it's just a cool element, that's not servicing anything.
I think I know who Deke is. I believe Deke is on like page 2 or 3. They're having an argument. The blonde-haired guy is having an argument.
He's the skipper. He's the captain.
Yeah, I think that's Deke.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't care.
Right.
So they and it also goes like back to the original conversation about we're going to look for gold, which is a time jump, which is cool, or like a flashback. And they talk about all this stuff about how we can get this one ship with this thing, but we'd have to have passengers that, or we'd have ride-alongs. I don't know what the fuck any of that means.
You're right.
At all. Like why that would be a plus or a minus, just that the characters that I don't remember any of their names are complaining about. Like, does that mean they'd have to split the money? Does that like they just throw tons of things at me, and it's like, ooh, a mermaid. Like, all right, cool.
Which JD for you or for you or anybody else that's interested, then this may very much interest you. I think it's on Amazon, but somewhere out there is a recent horror mermaid, a miniseries or series. I forget what it is called, but it's
Siren.
Siren. There you go.
Yeah, it's called Siren.
Is it good? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a movie or a book?
No, it's a TV series. I don't know if it's a miniseries or an ongoing, but it's a TV thing. I think it's on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
Prime Video. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Miranda Brothers' We Live from Aftershock Comics, written by Roy Miranda and Inaki Miranda, with art by Inaki Miranda. The encounter with the Bengal Ripper puts the group's survival to the test. Their lives now rest on Simon's shoulders, but in the Broken Lands, every wrong step comes with a consequence. Tala and Hototo, now joined by their new friends Humbo and Alice, find themselves dragged into a new and unsafe path. In the original path wasn't the same either. Reaching the train to Mother Megalopolis 9 is becoming an uncertain milestone. So I'm going to eat my own words. Last time we discussed issue 1, I went, it's just fine. I don't really care about it. And I don't know if it was like maybe I was just being a grumpy butt or what. But last night, it was time to read We Live number 2. And I went, which book is this? Which book? I don't even remember what book this is. So I went back and reread We Live number 1, the whole issue. And I went, oh, this is quite lovely. Oh, there's some good stuff in here. I'm really enjoying this. Oh, boy. And then I read issue 2 and I went, oh, shit. There's some stuff that goes down in this issue. This book is great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm the asshole. And I am perfectly fine saying that. Sometimes I read a book and I'm just tired or cranky. I haven't had my bottle. I don't know. I'm with you guys. This was great. And I was emotionally connected the second time to the first issue, to these new characters. And I was on the trail with these guys as they're going through and trying to get to the I guess the launch point.
Mm-hmm.
And ooh man, some stuff goes down and it gets dirty. And I felt like it was pretty brutal and really, really well done. What did you guys think, Len?
Oh boy, man! You talk about some good comic book reading, man. This was so much fun, and the introduction to it, I love when a comic book plays fair with the reader, starting with the cover, because the cover of this book tells you that if you enjoyed number 1, you will enjoy this one too. but it's going to take a turn. It lets you know that as much fun as happened, yes, you're introduced into like a bit of this dystopian world, but because of the vantage point that you're looking at it from these kids and some of the color choices of how the book is drawn and some of the storytelling elements, you could almost trick yourself into thinking that this is kind of like, yeah, but it's a little bit more fanciful or a little bit more, it's dark, but it's like light dark. But this cover lets you know, like, yeah, well, not that light dark, you know what I mean? Because yeah, there's not dark colors on that page, on that cover. But those are some sharp ass teeth on that cover.
Yeah, that's Alice, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Alice. But who you didn't know that's what you were sitting for with Alice. If you introduced to her in the first issue, so you don't necessarily know that that's Alice. You just see dark teeth. You're like, yo, what's about to happen? And yo, those teeth, they hurt. And if you don't believe that they hurt, there are pages in this book where those teeth do work. They do damage. They go ham. They would let you know exactly where you are living. And it comes right out of nowhere, like all good literature, like all good media, like all good stories should. It just comes and like hits you. And it's so well paced. It is so well done. It's so well drawn. You are locked in with all of these characters, and also you don't know what's going to happen next because you don't know what happens next.
Do we want to? Do you want to spoil it, or let's talk around it?
We'll talk about
So before you keep flipping pages, I'd like.
Yeah, I mean this book is just beautiful. It is vicious. It's raw. It's funny. It's dramatic. It's even slightly romantic in a way. It's tender. It finds time within itself to just give you enough backstory to just like sink you even more into the characters. I'm like, my God, this is a good comic book, man. I loved it.
The what you had just mentioned, the perfect example is the very end of the book. So like we started this story following Hototo and his sister, and then we met I forgot his name, and Alice. What's
no,
yeah.
Gala and Hototo, and then Humbo and Alice.
Humbo and Alice. The story, like this issue continues kind of with Hototo and his sister being the primaries, but then towards the end of the issue, it kind of changes focus and gives you like a 2 or 3 page, no words sequence that shows you the origin of Alice and Humbo, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so incredible. Don't go anymore,
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Len, you had mentioned the color choices, which are just exquisite. Like they're really interesting. I like the blue fur element of a lot of these animals, but not just that. Like the old man guide kind of guy with the yellow coat and this like kind of lights rig. I guess these lights are a way to communicate with these mutated animals. They seem to be. I didn't really think of that until now. Communicate or in some way influence. I thought it was like distraction or hypnosis, not necessarily communicate. That's what I thought at first too. Or maybe communicate's not the right word, but also that is how Humbo communicates with Alice. So I didn't think of it till just now. But I think these like circular colored lights are a way of, if not communicating, like some kind of contact between the two. Like there's something there. They all also have multiple eyes, which is interesting and may play a role in that. There is a surprise in this book that is the kind of thing that happens frequently in this kind of story, but still took me quite by surprise, which I thought was very cool. And this, like the ocean that they're in, this water dragon, this world building visually and in the story, just continues to be really fun.
Yeah, that turn in the middle of the book,
Mhm.
it was a shock, but then the way that it immediately escalated was
Mm.
was
Even
the
more.
real shock.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it was just like,
Yeah.
oh, I saw that coming. Oh,
Oh, it's
okay.
still coming.
Yeah. Like it definitely in 1.5 issues, the dynamic completely changed the entire story,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is ballsy. It's really cool.
very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm really
Also,
enjoying
the
this. I'm glad I came
relationship.
around on it.
Yeah, me too. Is this an ongoing or is it a limited?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
The
don't know.
relationship between Alice and Humbo, the way that evolves and like how they met, and what the relationship is now, I also think is just fascinating, interesting dynamic.
You see, I assume you're looking up to see if, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah.
Or
No,
it
maybe.
might be one of those ongoings that does have a finite ending. We just don't know it yet.
Mm.
So like,
Yeah.
24, 32 issue kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, the scene at the end is this like communication between them is I don't know, it's very peaceful. It's cool. Between
There was
Humbo and
another-
Alice. Yeah.
There was another book that came out 2 weeks ago from Boom Studios that's mildly similar in a post-apocalyptic kind of way called Origins. That was really decent. Like a lot of great ideas, not as strong as this, but when the second issue comes around, I would suggest we give that a look too, because there was a lot to chew on. A lot of
Sorry, which series?
Origin
Origin.
by Boom Studios. It's a 6-issue mini, but and I think it's like Jonathan Chapman or something. It's a name
Johnny
I've seen
Appleseed?
before. Yes, the writer is Johnny Appleseed. He took time off from his world tour.
Is that right? To write a
planting
comic or two?
things to write a comic. Yeah, it was mulling around in his head for so long. He finally put it down on paper.
It's great. You got to do that, you know.
Yeah, and it's called Origin. Like the seed. It's
His whole thing.
the whole thing. But it's kind of something like this, but infused with a little bit of Why the Last Man.
Okay.
So yeah. There's a lot of stories like this happening, almost like in the global consciousness, and so
I
far
wonder
they've been
why.
great. Yeah,
But JD, I want to ask something. But I don't know how much more of this book you want to cover necessarily. But here's my thing in regards to my edict of not reading books anymore. is that okay? Let's look at this book, We Live, which I love. Which, if I didn't announce it before, I'm announcing now. I will not be reading any more of it here on the show because I don't want to know it, because I want to know I want to read the trade. I know I want to collect it, and then I just want to read it all in a chunk. But here's my thing about our show. Every week there are about, on average, I would say 20 to 40, 50 new comic books come out every week. Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
a big range, but yeah. 20 to 50.
Okay. And we're reviewing about a good 5 to 6, 7 books every week. If we've reviewed We Live 1 and 2, we all have, we shared our thoughts on it. You know what I mean? Even if it's going to be a miniseries or if it's going to be an ongoing, we like it. Why would we continue reading? Or let's say Rorschach, better, because Rorschach is a miniseries.
Rorschach, not We Live. Let's talk
Right.
about Rorschach.
Because we know
is an image book or no aftershock book. And I don't know how much people want to hear about it, right? So we've done our due diligence for 1 and 2. Hey, we wholeheartedly agree that you guys should be checking out this book. Here's our thoughts on it. That's fine. That's good. Rorschach, I consider an event book because it's a very high-profile character by a high-profile team. And, there have been times on the show where people go, hey, you guys only review number ones. How come you're only reviewing number ones? How come you're not reviewing, continuing to review a series? because we want to hear about what you guys think of the whole series as it's continuing, because there's ups and downs and you may change your mind and all that other sort of stuff. We've gotten that feedback from the audience, from the sidekicks and the henchmen.
And I like the idea of that too, where we like sometimes stick with and see a whole story.
The same reason we keep reviewing death metal.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that's a really great segue. I'm kind of between the two ideas, because there are issues of like death metal where nothing happens, or it's the same. We can give the same exact comments that we did for the 2 issues before or the 2 tie-ins before. So do we take away potential space for an indie book or something that no one really knows about to use it on death metal? I think we had this conversation during House of X and Powers of X. Still good, still going, cool.
To me.
So I get the two. I'm kind of in agreement with both. So a book like We Live.
By case basis. Is there anything interesting to say about this issue? No, let's skip it.
Yeah, and because that's the thing. I could easily see We Live having some crazy stuff going on. Sometimes maybe it depends on the issue itself. And yeah, we've reviewed the last 4, but it keeps being interesting to talk about. Yeah. You never know until you read it.
It would I think it's probably gonna be case by case basis. So do we need to do 3 through 6? No. Yeah. But I'm gonna continue to read it. So I mean, if something insane happens around 5 or 6, maybe we should bring it up again so people know for trade. This book is still spectacular. This is so weird. This is like a show meeting. Look, I think that we because of the 8 people that watch us and the 7 people that listen, I think we have a small who we love. I think we have a small responsibility to advocate for the books. Do we advocate for the books that aren't getting the big love, right? So death metal's getting bought. Rorschach's getting read. Batman, I mean, people...
Yeah, but also those are the issues that a lot of people want to talk about.
No, I know.
Talk about.
But it's serving that, but then also focusing on stuff like We Live and Alienated. Yeah,
I think both. A combination.
Find something that we think is really worth discussing, like Alienated. We just kept talking about Alienated. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just happy.
But I mean, to Len's point, I think both of those things are, as long as the conversations are interesting, that's good, and I think we can accomplish that by doing a mix of both styles.
But Len, if you don't want to read Live number 3, that's fine.
I'm not.
It's good that you're fine with it, JD.
I mean, it's good that you don't have an issue.
Yeah. Y'all lucky y'all we're not reviewing Killjoys, because I'd have been quiet on that one too. Now, mind you, I did read death metal. I just had nothing to add.
No. Christopher Goodnight says, put out a list of titles and let people choose a few books off the list. We do not have time for that.
No.
We do not have time.
Oh, you know what?
That's called Get Your Own Show.
Christopher mentioned something about Nightwing's costume. I did comment to him. No. The costume that he's had in this Justice League Doom crossover is the dumbest thing in the world. And he's like, oh, it should be all the time. I'm like, no, throw a picture up. Do you guys know what I'm referring to? No. This barbarian Nightwing costume.
I mean, I think it works fine for the story. I wouldn't propose a permanent.
It works fine for the story in so much as there's absolutely no explanation for it whatsoever, and immediate flashbacks for right before he put the costume on, he's wearing his normal one. So why he needed to look like a barbarian to go on this mission, I have no goddamn idea. This book is stupid.
So many of these costume choices are just what's the craziest death metalist thing we can do?
Yeah, like Jay Garrick's outfit. Yeah.
In Justice, even in the story, I guess Cyborg and Starfire were in space for their Justice League Odyssey thing. The very first issue of this story, they transport to Earth and they're like, we're back home finally. What the hell is happening? However, they're wearing their Edgelord Doom outfits.
Yeah.
And
but the universe has changed. I think that has something to do with part of it. There has been a a continuity change to reality. That's what I assumed was why they were in their different outfits.
So like they walked into a door and they.
I'm about to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. There's a closet in space that they just walk through.
Yeah,
But that's not how.
It's like a walk-through closet. They.
I've never heard of such a thing.
That's. I mean. Okay.
No,
right.
I think it's just like why is any of this stuff? Why does Wonder Woman look that way? I think just like the past changed. Also, that was my understanding.
Because it's stupid.
But even okay.
Wait, but speaking of books that readers sometimes or that watchers and listeners sometimes suggest, I think we've all, or at least me, I have forgotten about the fact that next week is the last Sunday of the month. And we have not chosen nor read any book club thing.
Whoops.
So take that, expectations.
Well, you know what? I think they like the suggestions dried up. Like we got a couple of like real obscure ones from Home Dad Abroad that we couldn't like actually locate. And then what? I mean, in real time, do you guys have any ideas?
I remember somebody suggested a New Gods Green Lantern thing. It might have been Carl Carl's.
I love Carl Carl's, and I'm gonna say please no.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Carl Carl's too.
I remember thinking it looked pretty cool, but you guys are probably not wrong in that you would think you wouldn't like it. But yeah, I don't know. What do we got? What's something appropriate to this time of year?
Hey,
what do we got?
Hey, I got a I got something. It's something that I have, but I was interested in reading, and it's coming back. 7 to Eternity by Rick Remender and Jerome Opeña. Maybe the first volume of that, because it's ending this year. I think like it ends at issue 17. It's one of those books that like 3 or 4 issues come out and then it goes away. Like it goes away for 6 months to a year.
What's it about? What's the deal?
I don't even know. I just know that Jerome Opeña is an amazing artist. I have the issues.
First issue when it first dropped.
Apparently, it's pretty. Also, like,
Nola's making wiggly fingers around his hand.
Wiggly fingers
for those of you listening.
in order to like visually articulate that it's not super linear, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a.
Yes, I have it. I got it.
Oh, that looks cool.
Yeah, it's a
Cool
wild.
cover.
It's a beautiful looking book. Like I read the first issue way back in the day, and then just kind of kept getting it, and then it disappeared.
I've done that.
All right, guys. Anybody out there who wants to join us, next week is book club. We're going to review just a couple of issues that drop this upcoming Wednesday. And then we will do the rest of the show will be book club about 7 to Eternity, Volume 1 from Rick Remender and Jerome Opeña. That'll be this upcoming Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Join us as we live stream yet again here on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook Live. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all of those things. Rate and review us on iTunes. Do all that stuff. Pretty please. It would help us out a great deal and help us find more people to hang out with us on Sunday mornings because we love it. I'm your host, Johnny Destructo. You can tweet at me at JD's Hero Complex. You can email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com. You can, well, as soon as I'm not quarantining, you can come visit me at my store, Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex at 4327 Main Street. Fingers crossed that our COVID tests come back negative. Noel, where can the people find you? Is there anything you want to shout out?
Just, support local. Thank you. You can find me on social media as well as any of the Cult Pop podcast stuff at Mr. Bartocci on Twitter.
Oh, and I believe Noel and I are going to do another Thunder Round duo video of the other history of the DC Universe, which drops this Wednesday, and we have early access to it, so we're going to give it a gander and bring you our thoughts before it drops.
I did.
Brian, where can people?
I read it last night. Yeah.
Nice. I am at brianleibdesign.com.
Awesome. And Len.
Hey, I usually say that you can holler at me at every place that you find Black Tribbles, and you can do that. But I'm going to ask you, if you would be so kind, ladies and gentlemen, to join me this Tuesday at 7 p.m. on my other podcast, The Micheaux Mission, Micheaux, 2 men, 1 podcast, every Black film ever made, where me and my partner Vincent are going to be reviewing a adaptation of one of the greatest plays of all time. We will be reviewing 1961's A Raisin in the Sun. It promises to be a great time. So check us out, Michelle Mission on YouTube and Facebook Tuesday at 7 p.m. And everybody, please be safe this holiday. Please be safe and be smart.
Spell it one more time.
MICHEAUX Mission. Michelle Mission.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys. We love it when you come and comment and give us something to chat about. You're the best. Have a great, safe week. We will see you this same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks so much, guys, and we will talk at you later.
Bye.